The sun was already setting when Arthur, an elderly man, decided to take the road to visit his late wife's grave, something he did religiously every week. The winding road leading to the cemetery was almost deserted, and the shadows of the night began to envelop the surrounding landscape. Arthur was a man of few words, but his deep gaze carried decades of stories and memories, many of which he kept to himself. Arthur had always been a calm person, someone who valued the small things in life. After his wife's passing, he found comfort in maintaining a fixed routine, believing it helped him cope with the loneliness. His house, simple and cozy, reflected his personality. Everything had its place, and each object seemed to tell a part of his story. However, that particular day felt different. Arthur was more distracted than usual, lost in thoughts about the years he spent with his beloved. The path to the cemetery was familiar, but his trembling hands on the steering wheel revealed the weight of the memories that accompanied him. The road, though beautiful in its tranquility, hid dangers in its sharp curves and lack of proper lighting. Arthur, absorbed in his memories, didn't notice when the car began to veer off course. Within seconds, a deafening noise echoed through the night, followed by a disturbing silence. Arthur's car had violently collided with a tree on the side of the road, leaving him unconscious, trapped in the wreckage, alone and vulnerable. The silence of the night was broken only by the sound of the wind passing through the trees and the faint hiss of the still warm engine. The situation was critical, and time seemed to have stopped in that moment of despair. Arthur, a man who had endured so many hardships in life, now found himself at the mercy of fate, with no one around to help him. But in the midst of the darkness and despair, something unexpected was about to happen. Just a few meters from the accident site, a small figure moved silently among the shadows. It was a cat, with dark fur and bright eyes, drawn by the sound of the collision and slowly making its way closer. The animal, seemingly appearing out of nowhere, moved with an almost instinctive curiosity, as if it knew that its presence there had a purpose. And so, at the moment when everything seemed lost, the presence of that small feline brought with it a spark of hope. Little did Arthur know that his life was about to change forever, and that this unlikely encounter would be the beginning of a story that would touch the hearts of everyone who heard it. As the silence of the night grew almost deafening, the small cat cautiously approached the wrecked car. Its movements were swift and silent, its eyes glowing with an intensity that contrasted sharply with the surrounding darkness. When it finally reached the car, the cat paused, carefully observing the interior. Inside, Arthur was unconscious, his head resting on the steering wheel, his body motionless. The impact had been severe, leaving him trapped in the wreckage, unable to move or call for help. The air inside the car was heavy, mixed with the smell of twisted metal and the faint scent of crushed leaves that had blown in through the shattered window. The cat, driven by its natural curiosity, delicately jumped onto the car's hood, moving with an almost calculated precision. It was as if the cat knew exactly what it needed to do. Carefully, it slipped through the broken glass and entered the car, landing softly on Arthur's lap. There, the small feline settled down, curling up close to Arthur's chest. As the cat lay there, a gentle warmth seemed to radiate from its body, as if it were trying to offer some form of comfort to the injured man. And indeed, in that moment, something extraordinary happened. Despite his unconscious state, Arthur began to feel a lightness in his chest, a comforting sensation that briefly pulled him out of his stupor. Not far from the scene, a young man named Lucas was driving home after a long day at work. He had taken a detour on the road, opting to avoid the usual traffic in the city center. As he passed the curve where Arthur had crashed, something caught his attention. It was a reflection, a faint glimmer that seemed to come from within the woods by the roadside. Curious and concerned, Lucas pulled over and got out of his car, illuminating the path with his phone's flashlight. As he approached, the muffled sound of a still-running engine became clearer. When he finally spotted the wrecked car, his heart raced. Without hesitation, he ran to the vehicle, fearing the worst. Peering through the window, Lucas saw the most improbable sight: an elderly man unconscious, with a small cat nestled on his chest as if it were protecting him. The scene was both touching and surreal. Lucas immediately tried to open the car door, but it was jammed. He knew he had to act quickly. With trembling hands, Lucas grabbed his phone and called emergency services, explaining the situation in a loud, anxious voice. While waiting for the rescuers to arrive, he couldn't take his eyes off the touching scene inside the car. The cat, for its part, remained still, its eyes closed, as if it knew it was fulfilling its duty to watch over the man. Time seemed to drag on as Lucas waited for the rescue team. He tried to speak to Arthur, but received no response. Anxiety and fear began to take over, but something about that cat seemed to exude an unexpected calm, as if somehow everything would be all right. Finally, the distant sound of sirens broke the silence. Within minutes, an ambulance and a fire truck arrived at the scene. The paramedics quickly took control of the situation, and the firefighters used tools to pry open the car door. Lucas watched everything closely, praying that Arthur would be okay. When they finally managed to extract Arthur from the wreckage, the paramedics immediately began their work. The cat, which had remained motionless until then, leaped out of the car and disappeared into the darkness, as if its mission had been accomplished. Arthur was rushed to the hospital, and as the emergency vehicle drove away, Lucas stood still for a moment, still processing everything that had happened. The presence of that cat seemed almost supernatural, as if it had been sent to protect Arthur in his moment of greatest need. The story, however, was far from over. That night would mark the beginning of a series of events that would forever change the lives of Arthur, Lucas, and, of course, the little cat who had appeared out of nowhere like an angel in feline form. Arthur slowly awoke in his hospital bed, his vision blurry and his mind clouded. The soft beeping of medical equipment and the sterile smell of the room indicated that he was in a safe place, but a feeling of vulnerability surrounded him. As he fully opened his eyes, he realized he wasn't alone. Lucas, the young man who had found the wrecked car, was sitting beside the bed, looking worried but relieved to see him awake. "You're awake, Mr. Arthur," Lucas said with a genuine smile. "Thank God, I was so worried." Arthur tried to recall what had happened, but the last thing he could remember was losing control of the car. He frowned, trying to piece together the puzzle in his mind. What happened? How did I end up here? His voice was weak, but it carried a tone of curiosity and gratitude. Lucas began to explain what he had witnessed that night, how he had found Arthur trapped in the car, and, of course, the inexplicable presence of the cat. As he listened to the account, Arthur felt a shiver run down his spine. He could hardly believe that a small feline had helped him survive that ordeal. The memories started to return, fragmented but clear enough for him to recall the soothing presence of the animal on his lap. "A cat," Arthur repeated in disbelief. "I don't have a cat." Lucas nodded, equally perplexed. "Yes, it was the strangest thing. It was there, by your side, as if it were watching over you." Arthur closed his eyes for a moment, trying to grasp what this could mean. For someone who had always been a practical, down-to-earth man, it was hard to accept that something so extraordinary could have happened. Yet, a warm sensation spread through his chest, as if something within him had changed. Perhaps it was fate, or some kind of divine intervention, but the cat's presence had awakened something he couldn't quite explain. Days passed, and Arthur slowly recovered from his injuries. Lucas visited him regularly, bringing news and moral support. The two developed an unlikely friendship, bonded by the traumatic event and the mysterious appearance of the cat. Arthur, who had always been lonely since the loss of his wife, began to find comfort in Lucas's company, feeling that life was offering him a second chance to create bonds and connect with someone. As he recovered, Arthur started asking questions about the cat. He wanted to know where it came from, if anyone had seen it again, or if it was just a stray that happened to be in the right place at the right time. Lucas, in turn, tried to help, but no one in the town seemed to know the cat or have any information about it. It was as if it had disappeared as mysteriously as it had appeared. This uncertainty only fueled Arthur's curiosity. He couldn't stop thinking about the cat and what it represented. Perhaps it was a sign, a message that he wasn't as alone as he thought. The cat's presence had been a reminder that life, even in its darkest moments, always finds a way to surprise and bring hope. One morning, when Arthur was almost ready to be discharged from the hospital, Lucas arrived with a surprise. He was holding a small box that seemed to move slightly. Arthur looked at him with curiosity, not knowing what to expect. Lucas approached the bed and slowly opened the box. Inside, nestled in a soft blanket, was the same cat that had appeared on the night of the accident. Its bright eyes met Arthur's, and in that moment, something changed in the elderly man's life forever. He couldn't hold back the tears that began to stream down his face. It was as if the cat was there to remind him that there was still much to live for, many stories to tell, and that he wasn't alone. "I don't know where he came from," Lucas said, "but he seems to have taken a liking to you. I think you two have something special." Arthur reached out with a trembling hand and stroked the cat, feeling a deep warmth fill his heart. He had lost so much in life, but in that moment, he realized that there was still room for new connections, new beginnings. The cat, which he decided to name Chance, became a symbol of everything he could still achieve, even at his advanced age. From that day on, Arthur and Chance became inseparable. The little feline seemed to have a special ability to bring joy and comfort to Arthur, who now saw life through new eyes. The visits to the cemetery continued, but now, instead of sadness, he felt a deep peace, knowing that his wife, wherever she was probably smiling as she watched him find a new purpose. With Chance by his side, Arthur found a new reason to live. The small cat, with its quiet demeanor and expressive eyes, became a constant companion, filling the void that once seemed impossible to fill. Each day, Arthur grew stronger, both physically and emotionally. Chance's presence was like a silent therapy, a connection that transcended words. Arthur returned to his home, where everything now seemed to have a new color, a new meaning. The cat, ever curious, explored every corner of the house as if rediscovering the world alongside Arthur. The elderly man, in turn, began to see life in a way he never imagined. He started to appreciate the small things, like the simple act of opening the windows in the morning and watching Chance chase a ray of sunlight, or the way the cat curled up in his lap while he read his old books. The days of loneliness that Arthur had once feared were replaced by moments of pure joy. With each purr from Chance, he felt a piece of his heart heal, as if the little feline had a magical power to turn sadness into hope. Arthur began to venture out more, reconnecting with old friends and making new ones. He even volunteered at a local animal shelter, inspired by Chance and the second chance life had given him. People in the town started to notice the change in Arthur. The man who had once been seen as reserved and solitary now wore a warm smile, always accompanied by his loyal feline companion. Chance became a small local celebrity, known for his special way of captivating everyone around him. Children came from far and wide to see the miracle cat who had saved Arthur, and the elderly man, ever humble, shared his story with a twinkle in his eye. But while Arthur flourished, he also knew that Chance's impact extended beyond his own walls. The relationship between Arthur and Lucas also grew, transforming into a deep and true friendship. Lucas, who initially saw himself in the role of a savior, soon realized that there was much to learn from Arthur. The conversations that began about the accident evolved into discussions about life, love, and the importance of the connections we make along the way. One day, while Arthur and Lucas were walking together in the park, with Chance running ahead of them, the elderly man decided to share something he had kept to himself. He stopped for a moment, watching the cat play with the fallen leaves before turning to Lucas. "You know, Lucas," Arthur began, his voice soft and reflective, "I think Chance came to teach me something I had forgotten, that life is full of second chances. Sometimes they come in the form of a new friend, and other times, as a small creature that appears when you least expect it." Lucas nodded, understanding deeply what Arthur meant. He had learned much from the experience, and now viewed life with a renewed sense of appreciation. The friendship he and Arthur had built was something he had never imagined but now couldn't live without. Chance, in his quiet way, had become the bond that united them, a constant reminder that life always offers us opportunities to start anew, as long as we're open to receiving them. As time went on, Arthur began to write about his experience, recording in words the impact chance had on his life. He had never been a writer, but the words flowed naturally, as if his story needed to be told. He wanted others to know that no matter how lonely or lost they might feel, there is always a chance to find something or someone who can change everything. The local community was moved by Arthur and Chance's story. He was invited to speak at events, to share his experience, and most importantly, to spread a message of hope. Arthur accepted these invitations with humility, always bringing Chance with him, by his side, as a living testimony of the incredible journey they had traveled together. In the end, Arthur knew his life would never be the same, and he was grateful for that. He found in Chance not just a companion but a new perspective on life, one filled with possibilities and promises. He discovered that no matter the age, the past, or the losses, life always offers a new beginning, and all we need to do is reach out and embrace it. As the months passed, Arthur's life transformed in ways he could never have imagined. The small house that once echoed with loneliness now buzzed with laughter, frequent visits from friends and family, and, of course, the constant presence of Chance, who had become a beloved member of the community. Arthur, a man who had spent so much time dwelling on the past with sadness, now looked to the future with hope and gratitude. The story of Arthur and Chance didn't remain confined to their small town. It spread to other communities, touching the hearts of many who, like Arthur, needed a reminder that life always offers opportunities for renewal. The local events Arthur attended became platforms for him to share his message of hope and resilience. He spoke with a captivating simplicity, always with Chance by his side, serving as a living symbol of the incredible journey they had undertaken together. One afternoon, as Arthur and Lucas sat on the porch of Arthur's house, watching Chance play in the garden, the elderly man turned to the young man with a serene but meaningful look. "You know, Lucas," he began, "not long ago, I believed that life had given me all it had to offer. I lost my wife, my love, and it felt as if the world had gone empty. But then, on an unexpected night, a little cat appeared and showed me that there's always more waiting if we're willing to see it." Lucas smiled, understanding the depth of Arthur's words. "Chance didn't just save your life that night," he replied softly. "He gave you a new life, a new reason to keep going." Arthur nodded, moved. He knew Lucas was right. Chance had been more than a physical savior. He had been the catalyst for an internal change Arthur never knew was possible. And now, as he watched the sun begin to set on the horizon, he felt a peace he hadn't experienced in years. "I've always believed that things happen for a reason," Arthur continued, "but I never imagined that a reason as simple as a cat could have such a big impact on my life. He taught me that life, no matter how unpredictable, always gives us the chance to start over, to find joy in the little things, and to open our hearts to the unexpected." With those words, Arthur realized that he had reached a point in his life where the losses of the past no longer defined him. He had found a new purpose, a new love, and, above all, a new hope. Chance, with his quiet and comforting presence, had shown him that the end of one story doesn't mean the end of all stories, and that there is always a new chapter waiting to be written. And so, Arthur decided to dedicate the rest of his days to spreading that message. He became a kind of mentor to others who were struggling with loss and despair, using his story as an example that no matter how hard life gets, there is always light at the end of the tunnel, even if that light comes in the form of a small cat that appears at just the right time. Arthur's life became a living testimony to human resilience, the power of connection, and the miracle of second chances. And as he and Chance continued to share their time together, Arthur knew that, no matter where life took him next, he was ready to face any challenge with an open heart and full of hope. In the end, the message Arthur wanted to leave was simple but powerful. Never underestimate the power of the unexpected. Sometimes, the greatest changes come in the smallest and quietest of forms. And when those changes come, it is our choice to embrace them and allow them to transform us. Arthur and Chance continued their journey together, living each day with gratitude and joy, proving to everyone around them that no matter the age, loss, or fear, there is always room for a new story, for a new beginning.